Money loves silence, not anxiety. This truth echoes like the wind through the trees of a quiet Colorado forest. It's not a shout, it's not a struggle, it's not a rush. It's a whisper that moves when no one tries to hold it back. There, where the sound of the mind falls silent, something begins to be born. Imagine being alone before a still lake at dawn, the mirror-like water reflecting the sky uninterruptedly. The fresh air touches your skin as if to say, "There's no rush here." It's in this inner place that money likes to dwell. It draws near when it's not being pressed for time, when it's not suffocated by urgency. It's a breeze, not a storm. Money doesn't like eager hands. It feels at home when it finds space, like the wind coming through an open window. It moves at the same frequency as inner rest. If you can stop, even for a moment, and listen to the silence between your thoughts, you might realize money is there, lurking, waiting for you to invite it in without asking for anything. There's something in nature that never forces but achieves everything. The river doesn't argue with the mountain. It just flows around and continues. When we look at it, we sense intelligence in its gentle movement. It doesn't rush, but it never fails to arrive. And yet, we believe that to have money, we need haste, struggle, and control. Wu Wei is like the rhythm of the tide on the California coast. It ebbs and flows, but never out of time. The tide doesn't try to keep the water in place. And yet, everything balances out. This effortlessness is what allows the sea to remain the sea. Likewise, those who live in harmony with the flow of life naturally live in abundance. There's a subtle flaw in thinking that the more you chase money, the more it will come. It's like pushing the wind with your bare hands. Excessive effort creates invisible friction, a turbulence in the field of abundance. Money responds to lightness, not rigidity. It likes movement, but not agitation. A leaf falling from a tree doesn't struggle in the air. It trusts gravity. That's what many of us lack, trust in something greater than control. When we let go, we allow life to lead us down paths we never imagined. And money, it comes not as a reward, but as a reflection. There's a quiet wisdom in letting things unfold without forcing them. This wisdom lies in the flight of a bird that doesn't calculate the wind, but opens itself to it. It's in the sun that rises effortlessly over the rooftops of New York. When you act in tune with this, abundance becomes inevitable. Perhaps the greatest illusion is to believe that one must do more to deserve more, as if the universe were a machine that responds to pressure. But it is a garden that blooms when there is space, not when there is a shout. Abundance doesn't force itself to appear. It flourishes where the ground is clear and receptive. Wu Wei doesn't mean inertia, but rather attunement. Like the fisherman who casts his net only when he feels the sea is ready. He isn't standing still, but neither is he trying to dominate the ocean. He moves with the moment, not against it. This is what many have lost, listening to the right time. When the mind is restless, everything seems urgent. But abundance hates urgency. It loves presence. Because where there is presence, there is space. And where there is space, there is flow. Therefore, less effort often means more direction. Less struggle, more alignment. There's nothing wrong with wanting to thrive. But there's something unnecessary about trying to control how and when it should come. Like flowers that bloom at Different times, each life has its own rhythm. Pressuring is like yelling at a seed to grow faster. It doesn't work. Have you ever seen the sky asking permission to be blue? It just is. Money just is too. When you merge with this principle, everything starts to come without you chasing it. Because you're already where you're supposed to be. Struggle dissolves. And the flow finds you. Releasing control isn't giving up. It's simply trading the engine for the wind. It's trusting that what moves you can be smoother, more sensitive. That there's an invisible current guiding your steps even when you can't see it. And when you trust, it takes you to the place where the money was already waiting. There is a paradox that few understand. The less you force, the more you achieve. But not in the ordinary way, but in the Taoist way. The gentle, silent, inevitable victory. The success that arrives without destroying your peace. The wealth that grows from within. If you're tired of fighting, maybe you're ready to let go. Like the traveler who stops pushing the boat against the current and finally feels the lightness of the river carrying him. Perhaps true wealth lies in stopping seeking and starting to receive, not because you did more, but because you allowed it. It's not about doing the bare minimum. It's about doing what resonates with who you are. Because the universe doesn't respond to force, it responds to frequency. And when you get on the right frequency, everything moves effortlessly, including money. When you understand this, everything changes. The way you look at life, at work, at time. Nothing needs to be forced anymore, because what is yours arrives, and what is not dissolves. And all this happens in the exact rhythm of silence. Anxiety is like an electric field that disorganizes what it tries to attract. Even when the intention is good, internal noise drives it away. Money doesn't respond to mental commands or muscular tension. It senses the field where it's being called. And if the field vibrates with fear, it hesitates. The anxious mind can't stop. It searches, calculates, repeats possibilities. Like a loose wheel spinning in the wind, it finds no direction. And in this attempt to foresee everything, it forgets to feel. Money is like water. It slips through closed fingers. It only stays where there's room to flow. We often think we're being productive, but we're just distracting ourselves from the void. Emptiness, however, is the true gateway to abundance. It's not absence, it's preparation. When you fill your mind with urgency, there's no room for the unexpected. And money almost always comes through the unexpected. Anxiety stems from the illusion that everything depends on us, as if the universe were a machine and we were the central operator. But the truth is that there are forces at work that don't obey our deadlines. When we try to control everything, we disconnect from the magic of flow, and with that, abundance closes in. It's difficult to perceive how much an anxious mind vibrates with scarcity. Even when it says it wants prosperity, the body is tense, the heart racing. The universe listens more to what we feel than to what we ask for. Therefore, haste, pressure, and fear communicate exactly the opposite of what we desire. Imagine being in a desert, trying to find a source of water, screaming for help. The sound of desperation doesn't attract the source, it merely echoes in the void. But when you sit, breathe, and feel the ground beneath your feet, you might notice moisture there. The same goes for money. It emerges when the cry becomes presence. Many people live in a permanent state of mental stress. They think about money constantly, But they don't realize that this takes them away from the silence necessary to listen to it. Money doesn't speak loudly, it whispers. And to hear whispers, you need to quiet your soul. The anxious mind believes that if it stops, it will be forgotten. But the universe doesn't forget what's true. It's in the pause that true movement begins. And when you stop running, life begins to move toward you. And with it, money comes too. Control, however sophisticated it may seem, is an invisible prison. It makes us believe we're protected, but it keeps us trapped in the same place. Anxiety is the guard of this prison. It prevents us from seeing the open doors around us. And often, the money is right outside this prison. There comes a time when the soul tires of resisting. It surrenders, not out of surrender, but out of wisdom. And it is at that moment that the flow returns. Not because something has changed outside, but because something has reorganized itself within. Money doesn't require effort. It requires alignment. A noisy mind creates a tangled field. Like shorted electrical wires, it obstructs the flow of energy. Anxiety is this short circuit. And the energy of money, which is sensitive, moves away to avoid being burned. Silence, on the contrary, invites it back. Imagine a house with all the windows closed and the radio blasting. No matter how beautiful it is inside, the wind won't get in. And without wind, there's no freshness, no new life. The anxious mind is that house. Silence is the moment you decide to open a window. You don't have to erase your thoughts, but you can let them pass like clouds. You can breathe even with your heart racing. And little by little, remember that everything abundant comes when you let go, when you don't force it, when you just be. Anxiety wants to convince you that you're late. But the time of Tao isn't the time of the clock. It's the time of the flower, the wind, the natural cycle. Nothing is late when you trust. And the money that seemed distant begins to appear where you least expected it. The anxious mind is a child afraid of the dark, trying to turn on all the lights at once. But abundance is like a star. It can only be seen when night falls. Maybe it's time to turn off the noise a little and let the night speak. Because it's in this silence that everything begins. Money listens to silence, not to the cries of urgency. It approaches like a gentle mist on cold Montana mornings when no one calls, yet it arrives. It doesn't enter homes where everything is noise, rushing, and demands. It prefers spaces where there's pause, presence, rest. Because it is in the pause of sound that the music begins. There's a vibrational quality to silence that opens invisible pathways. It's like the open field of a valley, ready to receive the dew. Money doesn't come through noisy effort, but through the silent call of surrender. It needs to feel there's space for it to perch, like a bird choosing a quiet branch. Noise repels, silence welcomes. In nature, precious things are born in silence. Roots grow soundlessly. The seasons change without fanfare. Gold lies buried, quiet, waiting for those who don't cry out. Money, in turn, dances with the silence of the soul. It appears when it is not being pursued, but when it is allowed to be. Silence is not absence, it is presence without resistance. It is not a dead void, it is fertile space. Like the sky before a storm, there is strength there. When you enter this state, something reorganizes itself inside and out. Money perceives this clean, vibrant, open field. And it approaches naturally. At many moments in life, You felt the presence of something coming before you even saw it. A silent premonition, a gentle breath. Abundance works this way. It needs a subtle field to manifest. And this field arises when you silence the noise of fear, comparison, and pressure. Inner silence is a magnet. It doesn't demand, it just allows. It says, "I'm ready," and money understands. Because it, like all energy, responds to the subtlest vibration. The more you try to convince the world you deserve it, the more the world closes in. But when you silence, the world opens up. It's in silence that you hear your true intention. There are no masks, only truth. And money respects truth. It doesn't go where there's a rush for validation, but where there's a connection with what's authentic. Therefore, cultivating silence is also cultivating vibrational integrity. Many confuse silence with passivity, but silence is active on another level. It works where noise can't reach. It heals, organizes, and attracts. In the stillness of a New Mexico afternoon, you feel it. Everything keeps happening, even when you stop. Money keeps happening, even when you don't force it. Pausing is powerful. It reorganizes what was in conflict. When you become silent, you hear what money is trying to tell you. Sometimes it wants you to stop. Sometimes it wants you to change direction. But you'll only know if you're quiet enough to listen. Silence is the language of the invisible. And money, being frequency, understands this language. It comes when you tap into that same language. That's why so many find it when they give up looking. They haven't given up on abundance. They've simply aligned themselves with the rhythm it needs to arrive. In a world that values noise, silence is a revolutionary act. It's like swimming against the current of fear. And those who succeed in this naturally begin to attract what others are chasing. Because silence doesn't run, it attracts. When you learn to rest, even in the midst of doubt, something changes. The inner earth begins to open. The seed of abundance senses its time. And money, like a long-awaited rain, arrives slowly but surely. In stillness, you realize that nothing was ever missing. All that was missing was the space for things to arrive. Silence creates this space. It doesn't bring money, it invites it. And everything that is welcome comes. Therefore, true spiritual practice is not about doing more, but about being more silent. Not to escape reality, but to hear it better. The money you seek may already be close, but perhaps it's waiting for you to listen instead of shouting. And when you finally feel this, the search ceases, because it's no longer about having, but about being the field that attracts, being the silence that welcomes, being the space where abundance can land without fear. In nature, nothing forces its way, and yet everything arrives where it needs to. A river flows unhurriedly through mountains, gracefully skirting obstacles. A leaf falls at just the right moment, unsure of where it will hit the ground. The wind blows through the dunes of New Mexico with no fixed destination, yet with total presence. Everything flows because everything trusts. A tree doesn't stretch trying to reach the sun, it grows from the inside out. It receives light, absorbs. The invisible transforms silence into life. So it is with money. It isn't earned through haste, but received through openness. Abundance is the consequence of living in harmony with one's own natural rhythm. Clouds don't argue with the sky. They form, dissolve, and move on. Nothing and then is anxiety. Everything is surrender to what is. Money that comes with peace has the same spirit. It doesn't invade, it doesn't impose itself. It lands gently where it finds fertile, calm, receptive ground. An agitated mind closes this sky. An open mind expands it. On California beaches, waves don't need to justify themselves. They just are. And even effortlessly, they shape the shore. This is how it is for those who live in Wu Wei. They don't need to prove themselves. They just flow. Money, in this state, ceases to be a goal and becomes a consequence. Because everything that is natural finds its way without pushing. The difference between movement and agitation is almost invisible, but deeply felt. Movement is what the river does. Agitation is what the storm tries to impose. One brings life, the other confusion. Money moves with the first, it avoids the second. Those who live in presence become like the river, steady, yet light. Animals don't hoard beyond their needs. The squirrel collects, but also sleeps. The bird flies but rests. There is wisdom in this organic rhythm. Humans, however, often lose this harmony when trying to control everything. And money drifts away when this natural balance is not respected. Nature has no anxiety. She simply responds. When it rains, she absorbs. When it dries, she waits. This silent intelligence is the Tao in action. Money, being a flow, also obeys this rhythm. There's no point in crying out for rain. We must prepare the soil, even under the scorching sun, with faith in what will come. High in the Colorado mountains, the wind blows with a freedom that only detachment allows. It doesn't cling to direction. It simply dances with the shapes of the landforms. And that's what money seeks in us, lightness, not fixation. When there's room to change course, there's room for it to enter. Everything that strains creates tension. And everything that strains breaks. But bamboo, flexible, survives the storm. Flexibility is a principle of abundance. Those who are flexible with life, with time, with their own path, invite money to flow through the cracks of resistance. Observe a spring of water. It makes no fuss. It springs from the stone with immense gentleness, and little by little it nourishes rivers, cities, worlds. The money born from Wu Wei is like that. Almost imperceptible at first, but profoundly transformative. And it all begins with a simple gesture, letting go. It's not about copying nature, but remembering that we are part of it, and that we've forgotten how to listen to its rhythms. When we begin to perceive its messages again, we rediscover our essence. And with it, we open doors to forgotten flows, including the flow of money. Grass cannot compare to a pine tree. It grows silently, fulfilling its purpose. Comparison breeds anxiety. Acceptance breeds peace. And it is in peace that abundance flourishes. There is no single path. There is your path. And when you honor it, life honors you in return. The desert makes no apologies for its dryness. It simply is. And even there, life flourishes. Prosperity isn't a setting, it's a vibration. Money can sprout in the most unlikely places when the energy is right. Don't try to change the environment, change the vibration, and the environment will respond. Everything in nature teaches without words. It shows that thriving isn't about forcing, it's about allowing. That abundance comes when there's trust, not control, that the flow is wiser than any human plan. When we tune into this, abundance ceases to be a pursuit and becomes a reflection. Because deep down, the universe doesn't deny us anything. It simply responds to what we offer in vibration. And if we offer struggle, it returns resistance. If we offer presence, it responds with flow. Money doesn't escape us, it simply waits for us to learn to flow with it. There was a man who lived on the silent plains of Arizona. He didn't chase anything. He didn't make grand plans. He didn't yearn for riches. He planted what he needed, walked at dawn, and listened to the wind as if it were his master. Many thought his life too simple, almost empty. But there was something in his eyes that said otherwise. Once, during a long drought, all the surrounding farmers panicked. They began digging wells, searching for technology, and negotiating for water in haste and fear. This man, however, simply looked at the sky and the earth. He continued to water his plants with the little water he had, without despair. His calm seemed insulting to those rushing by. "You lose everything," they said. But he simply replied, "The earth still breathes." He trusted in something unseen, but deeply felt. A silent, nameless faith. And then an unexpected rain arrived, only on his land. For some reason no one understood, clouds stopped over his crops and gently watered them. While others ran, he waited. While others pushed, he trusted. And at the end of the season, his was the only crop that flourished. His neighbors asked what he had done. He replied with a slight smile, "I didn't do it. I allowed it." And in that moment, they understood that perhaps the secret wasn't in doing more, but in doing it with soul. This man didn't become rich in the usual sense, but everything he needed came to him. One morning, someone passing by his street fell in love with his fruit. He owned a market in the city and proposed a partnership. And so, the money began to come gently, naturally, without him ever having to chase it. In a coastal California town, a woman used to try to control every detail of her business. She made lists, spreadsheets, strategic plans, but the results never matched. The more she tried, the more exhausted she became. Until one day, overcome with exhaustion, she gave up. She went to the beach, turned off her phone, and cried, looking at the ocean. There, in that surrender, something opened. She realized she was trying to do the universe's work alone. When she returned, she decided to give more, trust more, rest more. A few weeks later, an unexpected offer arrived. A larger company wanted to buy part of her project and expand it. She didn't look for it. It came. The woman understood at that moment that there is an invisible intelligence that acts when we leave space. She didn't stop working, but she began to work with presence, not fear. Money began to come as a consequence, not an obsession, and her peace grew along with her earnings. These stories aren't about luck. They're about harmony, about respecting internal rhythms and external signals. When you're in Wu Wei, even misunderstandings become paths. Delays reveal shortcuts, and what seemed impossible begins to take shape with ease. The most prosperous people, in the deepest sense, are those who trust the invisible, who walk with their eyes open but their hearts free, who know how to wait, how to listen, how to pause. They don't follow formulas, they go with the flow. And money, like all energy, follows them. On the porch of a cabin in Oregon, an elderly man used to repeat, everything comes when you stop wanting it too much. It wasn't resignation, it was wisdom. It was knowing that the universe responds better to calm than to the storm of expectation. He had experienced this so many times that he no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. This wisdom isn't found in books, but in silence, in the dirt roads, in the long waits, in the deep sighs. It's in the moment you let go and realize you didn't fall, you just floated. It's in the moment when money comes unbidden because it sensed there was room to stay. The abundance born of Wu Wei doesn't shout. It whispers in the midst of routine. It appears in unexpected encounters, in simple returns, in hands that reach out when you've already stopped asking. It's not spectacular, it's gentle, but it's real. And when you feel it, everything changes. These stories are real because they happen every day to those who know how to listen. They're not about magic, they're about alignment. And this alignment begins when you stop pushing life and start walking with it. When you stop chasing money and start living in a realm where it naturally appears. You don't have to live in the desert or by the sea to feel this. You just need to learn to get out of the way, to not block with fear what's already coming, to trust the invisible with the same faith a river has in gravity. And then, just like in the stories, money will find its way to you. Money isn't a piece of paper, nor a full bank account. It's vibration, like a melody that can only be heard when you're in tune. Trying to grasp it as something fixed is like trying to capture a wave with your hands. It's not a thing, it's a field. And this field responds to your inner presence. In the silent vastness of a Washington rainforest, everything pulses soundlessly. The trees, even still, emit life. Likewise, money vibrates around those who are attuned. It's not about doing more, but about being more. Being calmer, more receptive, more at peace with who you are. You don't just walk into a radio station and knock on it. You tune in. It's the same with money. The frequency of abundance is beyond struggle. It lives where there is harmony between what you feel and what you emanate. It is in this space that reality begins to reorganize itself around you, not through effort, but through congruence. Wu Wei reveals that when we stop interfering, the natural flow appears. Money flows to those who already vibrate as if it were already there, to those who don't pursue it, but honor it with serenity. It recognizes the fields where there's space for it to be energy, not weight, where it can circulate uncontrolled. There are those who have a lot and feel empty. There are those who have little and vibrate with fullness. The frequency of abundance is not in what one possesses, but in peace with who one is. Money arrives fluidly where there is no resistance, and it manifests with intensity where there is no fear of losing it. It's not about denying the material world, but about realizing that the material world responds to internal states. When you live in internal scarcity, even large amounts become insufficient. But when you vibrate with gratitude, the little expands and the much arrives naturally. It's like surfing gentle waves. You don't create the ocean, but you align with its rhythm. The frequency of abundance is that wave. You don't force it. You notice it and choose to move with it. This requires presence, and presence only appears when the noise of the mind subsides. Money that comes from the right frequency is different. It doesn't weigh you down. It doesn't require sacrifice. It arrives as part of something bigger, not as a reward for effort. It's an extension of your state. It doesn't enslave you, it accompanies you, and that's why it stays. Like the warmth of the sun touching your skin at dusk in a wheat field, money in tune is natural, subtle, almost imperceptible at first. But by the end of the day, you realize how much it has warmed, sustained, and enabled. No drama, no urgency, just flow. The mind that wants to control everything lives out of tune. It vibrates in disconnection. And at this frequency, money may appear, but it doesn't stay. It disappears because it finds no rest. But when there is harmony, it rests, circulates, nourishes, and consequently multiplies. It's like being at a concert and realizing your instrument is in tune. You don't need to play louder. You just play in tune with the whole. And that's enough. Money senses this state. It recognizes when there's music in your field, and it comes closer to compose with you. Frequency is also affected by intention. Silent, pure, like intention, not expectation disguised as desire. When you desire with peace, you vibrate differently. And this vibration attracts, effortlessly, without anxiety, without control, like the seasons arriving at just the right time. Money isn't a reward, it's an echo. It echoes what you're being, and if you're being fear, it echoes distance. If you're being presence, it echoes proximity. And it all starts with choosing how you want to vibrate. Not to achieve something, but to be what you already are. Being abundant isn't about having a lot. It's about feeling like you're lacking nothing. It's about looking around, taking a deep breath, and realizing that the world responds to you as you become silent and tune in. Money comes, not because you screamed for it, but because you've become a field where it wants to be. Many ask for abundance with their mouths, but refuse with their hearts. They carry guilt, shame, and a sense of unworthiness. And the universe, sensitive as it is, hears these frequencies. Money doesn't enter places where it's not welcome. And often, it's not the world that closes doors, but our own inner self that blocks them. The energy of receiving begins with the ends with the kins with the energy of receiving. Energy of receiving begins with the energy of recognition that you are part of the whole. And if the whole is abundant, so are you. The problem is that we've been taught to ask permission to thrive, to believe that being cared for is weakness, that having money is a privilege for the few. But the Tao makes no distinctions, it flows equally. Wu Wei isn't just about not doing, it's also about allowing. Allowing life to embrace you, opportunities to find you, money to reach you without resistance. Receiving is an act of spiritual humility. It's saying, I trust, I accept, I make space. I don't need to control everything to be safe. Think of a dry field waiting for rain. It doesn't scream, it doesn't run, it doesn't despair. It opens, and it's this opening that allows the Yonji, water to penetrate, nourish, and transform. Money acts the same way. It doesn't invade. It arrives when there's real space, emotional, energetic, vibrational to receive it. The biggest obstacle isn't the external world, but the belief that it's wrong to receive without effort. That you have to pay with pain, sweat, and sacrifice. But the flow of the Tao doesn't require this. It only asks for alignment. And alignment arises when you understand that you deserve it, not because of something you did, but because of who you are. Receiving also means trusting in the right timing. It's knowing that not everything arrives when the mind desires, but when the heart is ready. There are blessings that await the maturity of the soul, and money, when it arrives before the right time, can be a burden. Therefore, more important than attracting it is preparing to sustain it. Opening your heart is allowing the wind to enter, even if it brings discomfort at first, because receiving often forces us to change who we thought we were. Money doesn't just transform your material life. It reshapes the way you see yourself in the world. That's why so many unconsciously reject it. Those who were taught to care for everyone often forgot how to receive care. But Wu-Wei is also about trusting that the universe cares for you, that there is an intelligence behind everything, guiding, offering, nourishing. And when you open yourself to this, something changes in your vibration. You stop rushing and start welcoming. The energy of receiving is silent but powerful. It tells the universe, I no longer run from myself. I no longer sabotage what arrives. I no longer need to prove I'm enough, because I already am. And in this recognition, the field expands, and everything begins to move naturally. You don't need to do more to deserve more. You just need to stop blocking what was already coming, because money is often already on the way, but the mind rejects it before it even arrives. Out of fear, out of old patterns, out of insecurity. And all of this can be unlearned with presence. Trust is the most fertile soil there is. Those who trust don't force. Those who trust receive. And not because they feel superior, but because they understand that the universe loves to give, and that the problem was never the lack of abundance, but the difficulty of receiving it. With ease, it's easy to give. It's hard to accept, because accepting requires surrender. It requires acknowledging that you're not in control, that there are greater forces taking care of everything. And when you accept this, money stops being a burden and becomes a flow that comes because you let it come. Like a door that was locked from the inside, the receiving field opens when you let go of fear, when you look at yourself with compassion, when you understand that you don't need to be part of a spiritual or professional elite to thrive. You just need to be at peace with yourself. This energy can't be taught in words. It can be felt, and it starts with small gestures, accepting a compliment, allowing help, taking a deep breath, and saying yes when something good comes along. It's these gestures that create the space for something bigger, and money is part of that. Receiving isn't about having more. It's about remembering that you are already enough. That life doesn't demand perfection to bestow gifts. It only demands openness. And when you open yourself, the flow comes, not because you forced it, but because you finally understand that you deserve it. Attachment creates tension, and anything that is tense blocks the flow. When we hold on to money for fear of losing it, it becomes a prison. A closed fist can't receive anything else. It protects what it has, but prevents the new from arriving. You have to open your hand for something to land. Money doesn't like to be stifled. It's like the desert wind. If you try to capture it, it escapes. But if you walk with it, lightly, it remains. There is no possible control over the flow of life. There is only harmony or resistance. And attachment is the most subtle form of resistance. Letting go isn't abandoning, it's trusting. trusting that life continues to provide even when you can't see the next step. It's living like a leaf floating, not knowing where it will land, but knowing it will be carried by the right wind, and that requires spiritual courage, the courage to let go. Many confuse detachment with neglect, but true detachment is a gesture of love. It's looking at money and saying, I respect you, but I don't need you. And in this space of freedom, it feels safe to return. Money loves being free, and it loves those who don't imprison it with fear. This is Wu Wei, acting without forcing, trusting without demanding, letting go without giving up. It's continuing to live with awareness, but without obsession. Money that comes with ease stays. It circulates, returns, flourishes. What comes with desperation escapes, evaporates, and causes anguish. It's the difference between flow and imprisonment. When something becomes an obsession, it's no longer abundance, it's lack in disguise. And the universe responds to real energy, not external discourse. If you live for money, it becomes your master. But if you live with presence, it becomes an ally, a reflection, not a shadow. Detachment also means releasing the results, doing what feels right, without tying your heart to what will come. Like someone who plants without demanding the flower, but tends the soil with love. Money likes this space. Because where there is true surrender, there is room for the unexpected to happen. Imagine a balloon tied to the ground by strings. It won't rise, even though it's light. The strings of attachment are invisible, but very real. Fear of lacking, fear of losing, fear of not being enough. When you cut those strings, something starts to rise. And money often comes with that rise. Attachment also hides in comparison. When we look at others and believe we're behind, that we have less, that we need to prove something. But the Tao knows no competition. It simply flows. And those who enter this flow stop measuring and begin to trust. Letting go of money doesn't mean spending it thoughtlessly. It's about stopping making it the center of your existence. It's about understanding that it's a bridge, not a destination. And that when you live as if you're already fueled inside, it approaches you through synchronization. Because it likes where it doesn't need to be everything. In the lightness of the desert, there is space for everything to pass. And it is this space that money seeks. It doesn't matter how much you have now. What matters is how you handle what you have. If you hold on with fear, nothing new comes. If you let go with wisdom, everything is renewed, including your relationship with life. Letting go also means accepting the end of cycles. Sometimes money disappears and we need to let it go without despair, because only then can it return. Through other channels, many prevent the return of abundance by not accepting its natural movement. But everything that is alive moves. Those who are afraid to let go live tired, because everything requires effort to be kept in place. But those who let go breathe, and in that breath, money flows in, like air filling the void of an opening lung. No struggle, no pressure, just flow. Abundance begins when you understand that you don't need to hold on to anything. That what's truly yours stays, that what needs to go makes room. And that everything, including money, flows better when it finds freedom. Because only through detachment does the trust that sustains prosperity arise. Letting go isn't losing. It's allowing. And allowing is opening the doors to something greater than what you were trying to hold on to. Money senses this. It recognizes where there can be flow, not imprisonment. And where there is freedom, it stays, it grows, it flows. Don't rush. Don't force allow. There comes a time when the search dissolves, and in its place, listening arises. Listening to the wind through the trees, the sound of the waves arriving effortlessly, the silence between one thought and another. It is in this space that money enters, not as an achievement, but as a consequence of alignment. You don't need to be more, have more, prove more. You just need to be silent. Open your heart like a clear field before the rain. Trust that what's yours is already on its way, but that it only gets closer when you stop pushing. Life doesn't demand urgency. It demands trust, and money is part of that same rhythm. Somewhere within you lies a still lake. It doesn't move, but attracts. It doesn't shout, but receives. When you become this lake, everything comes to you. Not by magic, but by nature. Because the universe responds to silence with generosity, and to emptiness with plenitude. Money isn't earned. It comes to those who know how to let it come. It doesn't respond to fear, but to space. It doesn't move with haste, but with surrender. And the more you remain silent, the more you feel it was never absent, just waiting for you to stop running. What if what you seek was already on its way, but your haste prevented it from arriving?